The night my father told me to get out, I was holding 2 first-class cruise tickets in my hand. Yeah. Let that sink in. I wasn't asking for money, I wasn't begging for space. I was standing there, smiling like a fool, ready to surprise my parents with a luxury Caribbean cruise, and my dad looked at me like I was expired milk. "Harper needs a content studio," he said flatly, swirling wine in a glass that probably cost more than my first laptop. "You're 30, Sienna. You're not building anything. You're just here. Just here." My little sister Harper stood behind him in designer leggings, scrolling TikTok like she was already famous. "She's got brand deals coming." My mom chimed in. "She needs space to grow. Space to grow." Translation: I needed to disappear. My childhood bedroom, gone. Walls painted a blinding bubblegum pink. My books, trash bags, my desk, replaced by ring lights and a neon sign that said, G. Di Nundo. Sign LiDAR. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just placed the cruise tickets on the hallway table. "You'll need a vacation," I said softly. "After this." My dad laughed. "Take your junk and figure it out. Maybe living in the real world will fix that attitude." The real world. Oh honey, I stepped into the freezing Colorado night carrying 3 black trash bags like I was the one being donated. The wind hit hard. Snow slicing sideways. My old Honda Civic coughed when I turned the key. They hated that car. Said it made the driveway look low income. I drove into the storm with no plan, no speech, no tears, just silence. The motel sign flickered like it was tired of existing. So was I. Room 27 smelled like old cigarettes and regret. The heater wheezed like it had asthma. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let the memory replay. This wasn't new. This wasn't sudden. This was 26 years in the making. My father, Raymond Cole, had a favorite bedtime story. In 2001 he was supposed to invest in a startup, big tech, early access, could have been worth millions, but that morning, I had a 1/4-degree fever. Seizure, ambulance ride, he missed the meeting. The startup went public, investors became millionaires. And according to him, I cost him $5 million. "You started life in debt." He'd remind me every birthday like it was part of the cake-cutting ceremony. From 16 onward, I paid rent in my own house. He called it interest. Meanwhile Harper, the golden child. When she wanted modeling photos, I paid. When she wanted lip fillers, investment, my mom said. When she needed influencer equipment, guess whose paycheck funded it? Mine. They called me average, said freelancing in computer stuff wasn't a real career. They thought I barely scraped by. They thought my oversized hoodies meant failure. They never asked why I dressed down. Never wondered why I drove junk. Never questioned how I always had cash when they needed help. I opened my backpack on that motel bed. Reached for my laptop. My stomach dropped. Gone. The bag felt wrong. Light. I dumped everything onto the bed. Chargers, hard drive, notebook, no laptop. That machine wasn't just metal. It was encrypted access to contracts worth millions. I didn't panic. I opened my tracking app. There it was. 3 miles away. At a pawn shop on West Colfax. I stared at the dot blinking on my screen. They didn't just kick me out. They robbed me. I drove straight there. The pawn shop smelled like dust and desperation. The guy behind the counter barely looked up. "Need the ticket?" he said. "Ticket." I ran back to my trunk, ripped open those trash bags in the freezing slush, digging through jeans and sweaters until I found it. Crumpled. Coffee-stained. Pawn receipt. My mother hadn't packed my things, she'd looted them. I paid $900 to buy back my own laptop. Sat in the car holding it against my chest like it was oxygen. And that's when the second notification hit. Email from the DMV. Vehicle ownership transfer complete. I blinked. My car. The car I paid for. Registered under my father's name years ago to save insurance money. He had sold it 3 hours earlier. While I was driving it, I actually laughed. Like full-on unhinged laughter. They sold my car to fund Harper's launch party. Ice sculptures, custom backdrop. I called my mom. "You sold my laptop, you sold my car. We raised you," she snapped. "You owe us." And Harper's career is about to explode. Stop being selfish. The line went dead. I sat in that freezing car. Snow tapping against the windshield like impatient fingers. And something inside me didn't break. It hardened. Because here's what they never knew. I'm not a struggling freelancer, I'm a financial forensic analyst. When venture capital firms suspect fraud, they call me. When companies cook books, I dissect them. Last year, I cleared $720,000, base. Bonuses not included. I could have bought their house 3 times over. But I never told them, because people like my parents don't appreciate wealth. They exploit it. I opened my laptop. Screen glow lit up the car interior. Password entered. Access granted. I stopped being Sienna, the daughter. I became Sienna Cole, the auditor. They thought they threw away deadweight. What they actually did, they declared war on someone who specializes in financial destruction. And the first rule of war: you don't attack unless you plan to win. I didn't cry. I didn't call friends. I ran numbers. And what I found? Oh, it gets worse. You ever get kicked out your own housey, and then find out the house isn't even theirs? Yeah. That's where this gets spicy. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a blink. The motel heater died around 3 a.m., but honestly, the cold kept me sharp. I like sharp. Sharp makes clean cuts. Laptop open. Coffee from a vending machine that tasted like regret. Fingers moving. First thing I did, follow the money trail from my car. Raymond listed it on some quick sale auction site. Sold for $8,200. Absolute steal. The transfer timestamp, 4:17 p.m. You know what time I pulled into their driveway that night? 4:32 p.m. He sold my car while I was inside being evicted. Bold. I traced the funds. Didn't take long. The money didn't go to utilities. Didn't go to the mortgage. Didn't go to groceries. It went to Glam Theory Events, a high-end party planning company in Denver. 2,100 premium chocolate fountain. 100 350 influencer backdrop installation. $3,400 viral launch experience package. 4,100 my car. Melted into chocolate and frozen into ice. For Harper's. Brand reveal. I leaned back in that squeaky motel chair and just stared at the screen. They weren't struggling. They were delusional. But here's where it gets wild. I ran a full asset and liability scan on my parents. When you do what I do for a living, you know where to look. Public filings. Credit movement patterns. Refinancing cycles. And what popped up? A notice of default. Filed 28 days ago. I blinked. No way. I dug deeper. 3 refinances in 5 years. 4 maxed credit cards. 2 personal loans. 1 balloon payment coming due in 60 days. They weren't tight on cash. They were bleeding out. The house they kicked me out of. Technically owned by the bank. Foreclosure clock ticking. 30 days. And they still painted my bedroom pink. The audacity is almost impressive. But foreclosure alone wasn't enough. Foreclosure is sad. It's not leverage. I needed something with teeth, so I pulled the most recent refinancing application. They'd submitted it 2 weeks ago to avoid losing the house. Now normally, I can't just access bank submissions, but Raymond, bless his arrogant little heart, he never removed me from the old family cloud server. And guess where he drafted the application? There. I opened the PDF, scrolled past inflated home value, scrolled past projected influencer revenue, and then I saw it. Applicant Raymond Cole annual income the 92 Zalozinho. Applicant Harper Cole annual income $210,000. I froze. $210,000. From what? Lip gloss tutorials and 3,000 views per reel. I actually pulled up Harper's engagement analytics. Fake followers. Bot spikes. Engagement rate under 1%. Sis wasn't making 210 Zalozin. Sis wasn't making 2,100. He lied. He fabricated income to secure a federally insured refinance loan. That's not cute. That's federal bank fraud. Title 18, Section 1344. Up to 30 years. I read it again. He signed it. Submitted it. Certified it was accurate. I backed up the file to 3 encrypted drives. Because when you hunt financial predators for a living, you don't just gather receipts. You build cases. Now here's the thing about desperate people. You can't attack them directly. They bite. You offer hope. You let them feel smart. You let them think they're winning. Then you close the trap. I picked up my phone and called someone who owed me a favor. Ethan Mercer. Corporate attorney. Shark in a tailored suit. Last year, I saved his firm from a multi-million-dollar embezzlement nightmare. He answered on the first ring. Sienna. To what do I owe the chaos? I need a shell company. Pause. Ah, he said softly. That kind of chaos. Name it something polished. Something predatory. Something that sounds like it invests in distressed assets. He chuckled. How about Ironclad Capital? I smiled for the first time that night. Perfect. Within hours, Ironclad Capital existed on paper. Boutique investment firm, private silent partner, specializes in high-risk consolidation loans. Translation, bait. Ethan called my father the next morning. I listened through forwarded call logs. Mr. Cole? Ethan said smoothly. Ironclad Capital is interested in unconventional portfolios. We understand your daughter has a rapidly growing digital brand. My father didn't hesitate, didn't question, didn't pause. He bragged. Oh, he bragged. She's about to blow up, he said. We just need strategic backing. Strategic backing, like selling your oldest daughter's car for a chocolate fountain. Ethan made the ask. To evaluate, we'll need your most recent refinance application for comparison. 4 minutes later. PDF sent. Hook swallowed. No hesitation. Because liars don't remember they're lying. They think everyone else is stupid. But here's what really got me. In the email, my dad wrote, "We're excited to work with professionals who recognize potential. Unlike some people in our family." Some people. I stared at that line. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is emotional. This was clinical. The refinance document wasn't just false, it was explosive. Because buried in it were income statements, fabricated contracts, and forged projections. He'd even attached a fake, brand partnership intent letter. Sloppy. So sloppy. And the best part, Ironclad Capital scheduled an in-person signing. Silent partner insists. Ethan told him. Wants to meet the visionary family. My father agreed instantly. He loves an audience, loves applause, loves pretending he built something. Meeting set for Friday, 48 hours, conference room. Downtown Denver, champagne included. I closed my laptop and finally let myself breathe. You know what's wild? They thought I was the liability. Turns out, I was the only asset in that entire house. And they were going to sign their house away. To me. They just didn't know it yet. Trust me. The conference room scene? It's delicious. You ever watch someone walk confidently into their own downfall? It's almost cinematic. Friday morning hit different. Not motel different. Not survival mode. This was calculated. I didn't wear my oversized hoodie. Didn't throw my hair in a messy bun. Nope. I stepped into a charcoal gray power suit that fit like it was stitched with intention. Heels sharp enough to make a statement on marble floors. Hair slicked back, clean, controlled. Because today, I wasn't Sienna, the disappointment. I was the silent partner. Downtown Denver was buzzing when I pulled into the underground parking garage of Mercer and Hale Law offices. Glass building. Polished steel. The kind of place where deals are signed and lives quietly collapse. Ethan met me at the private elevator. You sure? He asked, low voice. I didn't blink. Very. He handed me a keycard to the observation suite above the main conference room. Once they sign, he said. It's automatic. Good. Because I wasn't here for drama. I was here for closure. From the darkened observation room, I watched the security feed flicker to life. And there they were. My father, Raymond Cole, in a navy suit that looked a little too tight around the stomach. My mother, Denise, clutching a designer purse like it was a status symbol instead of debt, and Harper. Oversized sunglasses indoors. Phone glued to her hand, nails tapping the screen. She was probably live, posting something like, "Big meeting today, manifesting abundance." Abundance. The irony almost made me laugh. They sat at the long mahogany table like royalty. Ethan entered, smooth as ever. Champagne, he offered. Oh, absolutely? My father said. We'll only drink the good stuff. Of course you do. Ethan placed the contract in front of them. Standard distressed asset consolidation agreement. He explained calmly. Ironclad Capital will assume your outstanding liabilities and provide capital infusion for Harper's brand expansion. Harper perked up. I told you we're leveling up, she whispered. Leveling up. Raymond didn't read the contract. Didn't skim it. Didn't flip pages. He saw the number at the top. The amount that would temporarily save them from foreclosure. And his ego did the rest. He signed. Denise signed. Harper signed as witness. 3 signatures, 3 strokes of a pen, 3 irreversible mistakes. Buried on page 37. Cross default clause. If any submitted financial information proves materially false, agreement defaults immediately. Page 42. Prate signed deed in lieu of foreclosure. Upon default, property transfers automatically to Ironclad Capital. No court, no warning, no debate. They thought they signed salvation. They signed surrender. Ethan stacked the papers neatly. Wonderful, he said. Before we release funds, our silent partner would like a brief word. My father grinned. Of course. I'd love to meet the visionary backing us. Visionary. That word tasted sweet. Ethan stepped aside, and I walked in. The conference room went silent, not the awkward kind. The oxygen leaving the room kind. Harper looked up first, her face scrunched. Sienna. My father blinked like his brain couldn't process the image in front of him. Because I didn't look like the daughter they kicked out. I looked expensive, controlled, untouchable. How did you get in here? He demanded. I didn't rush. Didn't raise my voice. I walked to the head of the table. Ironclad Capital, I said evenly. That would be me. Denise laughed nervously. Oh, stop. This isn't funny. Ethan didn't move. Didn't correct me. Didn't blink. Reality started settling in. Raymond stood abruptly. You're not involved in this. We're discussing serious financial matters. I know. I replied calmly. That's my specialty. I placed a printed document on the table, the refinance application, enlarged income section highlighted. Co-applicant Harper Cole. Annual income $210,000. Harper's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Raymond's face drained of color. You falsified federally insured loan documents. I continued. That's bank fraud. Denise's voice cracked. It's projection. It's anticipated revenue. Projection is labeled projection, I said. This says certified income. Silence. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Raymond turned toward Ethan. You set us up. Ethan clasped his hands calmly. You voluntarily provided documentation, Mr. Cole. I stepped closer. When false information triggers default. I paused. The deed in lieu clause activates. I clicked the remote. The projector displayed the updated property deed. Property 1842 Maple Ridge Drive. Previous owners Raymond and Denise Cole. Current owner Ironclad Capital LLC. Denise gasped. That's collateral paperwork. Raymond snapped. No, I said softly. That's transfer of title. The room felt smaller. Harper's phone slid from her fingers onto the table. You tricked us, she whispered. I tilted my head slightly. You tricked a bank. Raymond stared at the screen like it might change. It didn't. Where's the money? He barked. There is no money, I replied. The loan defaulted the second you signed. Denise grabbed the edge of the table. You can't do this? We're family? Family. There it was. I leaned forward, palms flat on polished wood. Family doesn't pawn my laptop. Family doesn't sell my car for a chocolate fountain. Family doesn't throw me out in a snowstorm. No one spoke, because there was nothing to argue. You have 48 hours, I continued evenly. Vacate the property. Leave it undamaged. Raymond shook his head in disbelief. You wouldn't. I met his eyes. If you refuse, I forward the fraud documentation to federal authorities. I didn't say it loudly. I didn't need to. He knew I meant it. Harper started crying, actual mascara, running tears. My launch party? I almost smiled. Cancel it. Raymond looked smaller. Not physically. Spiritually. For the first time in my life, he wasn't towering over me. He was cornered. You're destroying us, he whispered. No. I corrected gently. I'm auditing you. And audits. They don't lie. You ever tell the people who raised you that they've got 2 days to get out of your house? Yeah, it hits different when the power shifts. After I dropped the 48 hours line, nobody moved. Not my dad. Not my mom. Not Harper. It was like someone pressed pause on their entire reality. Raymond was the first to find his voice. You're bluffing. His tone tried to sound strong, but it cracked around the edges. I didn't even look at him. I looked at my watch. Clock started 5 minutes ago. Denise grabbed his arm. Ray, say something. He stepped toward me, jaw tight. You think you're smarter than us. You think wearing a suit makes you powerful. I smiled, slow and calm. No, understanding contracts does. Harper sniffed, wiping tears carefully so she wouldn't ruin her lashes. You're ruining my career, she whispered. Your career. I let out a small breath. Your career isn't real, I said evenly. Your engagement rate is 0.8%. Half your followers are bots from Eastern Europe. And the brand intent letter you attached to the refinance. The company doesn't even exist. Harper stared at me like I'd just slapped her. You stalked me. No, I corrected. I audited you. Raymond slammed his hand on the table. You set this up. You manipulated us. I met his eyes. You lied to a bank. That shut him up again. Ethan cleared his throat gently. Mr. and Mrs. Cole, you signed a legally binding agreement. I advise you to consult independent counsel if you believe you've been wronged. Independent counsel. Translation, you're cooked. Denise's composure finally broke. What do you want from us? She asked, voice trembling. I paused. Because here's the thing. This wasn't about revenge. If it were, I would have sent the fraud file to federal authorities already. This was about balance. I want my losses accounted for, I said calmly. Raymond scoffed. Losses. I nodded slowly. Let's run numbers. I pulled a folder from my bag and laid out printed statements. Car market value 38,000 sold for 8,200 loss. 2,900 laptop pawned and repurse 900 rent paid from age 16 to 2 years and thirds 200 monthly average total 86,400 miscellaneous Harper investments. Approximately 24,000 I looked up. You owe me 141,100 silence. Denise whispered. That's insane? No, I said softly. What's insane is charging your teenager rent. Raymond's face turned red. You lived under my roof. And paid for it. I shot back. He opened his mouth, closed it. Because facts are hard to argue with. I straightened. Here's the deal. You leave peacefully. I deduct what you owe me from the property equity after liquidation. Whatever remains you get. Denise blinked. You're selling the house. Yes. Harper gasped like I'd announced a funeral. That's my brand location. I looked at her evenly. You can't pay a mortgage with likes. The room went dead quiet again. Raymond's shoulders dropped. For the first time in my life he looked tired. Not angry, not superior, just tired. You'd really report me? He asked quietly. I didn't hesitate. Yes. Because here's what he never understood. I don't bluff, I build cases. He studied my face like he was searching for the little girl who used to beg for approval. She wasn't there. Finally, he exhaled slowly. We'll leave. Denise started crying. Harper stared at the table like it betrayed her. I stepped back toward the door. You have until Sunday at noon. I paused. And don't damage anything. I'll know. That wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The next 48 hours were quiet. Too quiet. I didn't go to the house. Didn't call. Didn't check in. Instead, I ran background risk assessments in case they tried something reckless. Credit movement, large withdrawals, insurance changes. Nothing. They were scrambling, but legally. Saturday night, Harper posted a vague Instagram story. Some people switch up when they get money. I didn't respond, because silence is louder. Sunday, 11:43 a.m., I pulled into Maple Ridge Drive, my new driveway. The house looked smaller than I remembered, less intimidating, less powerful. The U-Haul truck was parked out front. Raymond was loading the last box. He didn't look at me. Denise avoided eye contact. Harper stood off to the side, arms crossed, pouting like this was a minor inconvenience. I stepped out of my new Audi. Yes, in my name. Raymond glanced at it, then at me. You always had money, he muttered. Yes. He let out a hollow laugh. And you let us struggle. I tilted my head. You weren't struggling. You were overspending. That hit. Denise approached me hesitantly. Where are we supposed to go? I held out an envelope. Inside? A relocation check. After deductions, they stared at the amount. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't nothing. You kept records? Raymond asked quietly. Every receipt, I said. He nodded once. Like he finally understood who I actually was. Harper stepped forward suddenly. You're not better than us. I looked at her calmly. I'm not trying to be? That confused her. Because she thinks everything is competition. I walked past them into the house. Empty. Echoing. My old bedroom door was open. Still neon pink. Still screaming. Influencer dream. I stepped inside. The walls felt loud. Immature. Temporary. Just like their priorities. I didn't repaint it. I left it exactly as it was. A monument to delusion. When I walked back outside, the U-Haul was starting. Raymond paused before getting in. You're cold, he said. I shook my head slightly. No, I just stopped being warm to people who burn me. He didn't reply. They drove off. No hug, no dramatic goodbye. Just an engine fading down the street. And just like that, silence. I stood in the driveway alone, not abandoned, not rejected. Owner. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Owning the house wasn't the victory. What I discovered inside it. That's where the real story starts. You ever win something, and it still feels off? Like, yeah, technically I own the house now, legally, clean, signed, sealed. But when I stood alone in that living room Sunday afternoon, keys in my hand, something didn't sit right. It was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Heavy quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like it's holding its breath. I locked the front door behind me and just stood there. Same chandelier. Same cream-colored walls. Same family photos lining the hallway. Only now. Every frame felt staged, like a museum exhibit titled, Functional Family. I walked into the kitchen first. Empty fridge. Cabinets half cleaned. They moved fast. Too fast. And that's when my instincts kicked in. See, when you audit corporations, you learn something important. People who lie financially, they hide things physically too. So I didn't relax. I searched. Not drawers and closets. Structure. I started in my father's office. It used to be off limits. Mahogany desk. Locked filing cabinet. Wall safe hidden behind a framed certificate he loved to brag about. Funny thing, he never changed the safe code. Harper's birthday. Golden child privilege strikes again. I entered it. Click. Inside. No cash. No gold bars. Just a stack of documents. Loan agreements. Credit card statements. Private lending contracts. And one document that made my stomach drop. A second mortgage. Not the refinance. A completely separate private loan. High interest. Signed 6 months ago. Collateral listed. The property and all structural assets. All structural assets. Why would a private lender require that level of collateral? Unless Raymond had already defaulted somewhere else. I grabbed my laptop from my bag and ran the lender's name. Not a bank, not a credit union. A private equity recovery firm. Translation. Predatory collectors. The kind that don't play court games. The kind that sees first and explain later. My chest tightened slightly. Had I just inherited a ticking bomb? I kept digging. There it was. Missed payments, 2 of them. Which meant they were already in breach. Which meant the lender could activate seizure at any time. I leaned back in his office chair slowly. Raymond hadn't just been drowning. He'd been hiding it. And when he signed with Ironclad Capital, he probably thought he was clearing that private debt too. Except he wasn't. Because the default clause wiped out his refinance before funds ever released, which means the private lender still had legal claim potential. I laughed softly. Not amused. Impressed. He'd buried the house in so much debt it was practically quicksand. And he never told me. Of course he didn't. Why would he? I was just dead weight. I scanned the documents carefully. The private lender's contract had one critical flaw. It required formal notice of ownership change within 30 days to maintain lien priority. And guess what hadn't happened yet? Notification, because the title transfer to Ironclad Capital was immediate and sealed in escrow. Which meant legally, I had a window. A very small one, but a window. I moved fast, filed ownership confirmation, sent legal notification through Ethan's office, triggered a lien priority dispute based on fraud, related default timing. Basically, I flipped the chessboard. If they wanted the house, they'd have to fight me. And I don't lose financial fights. But that wasn't the only thing the house was hiding. I went upstairs, to Harper's studio, ring light still mounted, tripod in the corner, closet half empty, and on the vanity desk, a laptop she forgot. Unlocked, careless. I hesitated for half a second, then opened it, because if someone lies about income, you verify. Email inbox. Brand outreach attempts, mostly unanswered. A few pity collaborations, free products, no paid contracts. But then I found something else. A draft email to a talent agency. Subject line, family hardship for sympathy engagement. I opened it. Harper had planned to spin the foreclosure story into content. Crying thumbnails. Emotional reels. Will lost everything narrative. Monetize the fall. I sat back slowly. That wasn't desperation. That was calculation. She was going to milk losing the house for followers. And the wild part. she probably would have gained traction from it. But now, she couldn't. Because technically, they weren't victims. They committed fraud. You can't cry online about losing your house when paperwork says you lied to keep it. I closed her laptop gently. Not angry, just aware. The entire family had been playing a performance, and I was the only one who understood the script. As I walked back downstairs, my phone buzzed. Ethan. It's moving fast, he said. The private lender is pushing back. Of course they are. They're threatening seizure. I smiled slightly. Let them. Pause. You're confident. No, I corrected. I'm prepared. Because here's what Raymond never understood. You don't sign high-interest private loans unless you're already cornered, which means there were more cracks. And I was going to find them. I hung up and walked to the living room window. Snow melting slowly in the yard. Driveway empty, house silent, mine. But this wasn't over. Not even close. Because I didn't just take their house. I inherited their mess. And someone out there was about to realize they'd just picked the wrong woman to pressure. The private lender makes a move, and I make one back. You ever have someone try to intimidate you, in your own living room? Yeah. Monday morning, 8:12 a.m., I was standing barefoot in my kitchen, drinking coffee out of a mug that still said, "World's best dad." Said the irony, chef's kiss. Doorbell rang. Not a friendly ding. An aggressive, hold your finger down kind of ring. I already knew, private lender. I opened the door calmly. Two men, dark coats, no smiles. The taller one spoke first. M's. Cole. I tilted my head slightly. Depends who's asking. He handed me a folder. Ardent Recovery Group. We're here regarding property at 1842 Maple Ridge Drive. Ardent Recovery Group. I'd researched them the night before. Predatory acquisition firm, known for rapid foreclosures. Minimal patience. The kind of company that bets on people folding under pressure. The shorter man scanned me like I was supposed to look scared. You're occupying collateral property tied to an outstanding private loan. I didn't move. I own this property, I replied evenly. The tall one gave a tight smile. Ownership is under dispute. Not yet. I corrected. He paused. That slight hesitation. That's how you know someone expected compliance. He opened the folder and pulled out the private loan contract Raymond signed. 2 missed payments. Default triggered. We reserve right of seizure. I nodded slowly. Yes. Against Raymond Cole. Silence. He blinked. You're aware he transferred title under questionable circumstances. I almost laughed. Legally binding circumstances. I said calmly. Deed in lieu executed prior to your notice filing. You failed to secure lien priority. The shorter guy frowned. The tall one's jaw tightened. You're not just a family member, he said carefully. No. He studied me more closely. What do you do, Miss Cole? I held eye contact. I unwind financial fraud for a living. That landed. I could see it. Predators recognize other predators. And suddenly, they weren't sure which side I was on. Here's the thing about firms like Ardent. They don't want houses. They want leverage. Fast settlements. Easy flips. Weak owners. They thought they'd show up, scare a young woman, force a quick payoff. What they didn't expect. Documentation already filed. Lien dispute triggered. Fraud timeline established. I stepped aside slightly. Would you like to come in? Or would you prefer I send my attorney to contact yours directly? They didn't move. Tall guy flipped through his folder again. You're saying you intend to contest priority? I already have. He stared at me. You move fast. I move prepared. Another pause. Then he tried a different tactic. You understand litigation can get expensive. I smiled. I understand litigation is tax deductible. That one hit. Short guy shifted uncomfortably. The tall one closed the folder slowly. We'll be in touch. I'm counting on it. They walked back to their SUV. And I stood in the doorway watching them drive off. Not shaking. Not rattled. Focused. Because this wasn't over. Not legally. But here's what they didn't know: Ardent's CEO had a history. And I had access. Back inside, I opened my laptop, pulled Ardent's financials. Private firms don't publish much. But debt-backed acquisition companies leave footprints. And Ardent. They were over-leveraged, aggressive expansion, high-yield investor bonds. Which means, They needed quick asset turnovers to stay liquid. They didn't want a drawn-out legal dispute, they wanted easy prey. So I did what I do best. I found their pressure points. Ardent had pending investigations in 2 states for aggressive foreclosure practices, nothing criminal, but messy. Public scrutiny risks investor confidence, and investor confidence, that's oxygen. I drafted a formal notice through Ethan's firms, a lien dispute filed. Fraud documentation timestamped prior to Ardent's default claim. Like evidence of potential misrepresentation by prior owner, Raymond. Intent to escalate review to regular authorities, if wrongful seizure attempted professional, polite, terrifying, because it told them one thing: I wasn't emotional, I was procedural. By Wednesday afternoon, Ethan called. They've softened. I leaned back in the kitchen chair. Define softened. They're offering settlement. Of course they are. Predators retreat when prey grows teeth. What do they want? Be out at reduced value. 40 cents on the dollar. I considered it. 40% of Raymond's original loan was significantly less than the property value. Ardent wanted quick liquidity. I wanted clean ownership. Counter at 30, I said calmly. Ethan laughed softly. You're ruthless. No, I corrected. I'm efficient. 2 days later, we settled at 35%, cash transfer, lien released, house fully cleared. No pending claims, no shadow debt, clean title. I closed my laptop and finally allowed myself to breathe. Not because I was stressed. Because the board was finally clear. Raymond's financial mess? Neutralized? Ardent, paid off and gone. The house? Fully mine, debt-free, legally untouchable. And here's the part that surprised me: I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. For the first time in my life, there was no hidden liability attached to my existence. No. You owe me. No, you cost us. No invisible debt. Just ownership, real ownership. That evening, I walked upstairs to my old neon pink bedroom. Still loud, still obnoxious. I stood in the doorway for a long time, and then I finally grabbed a paint roller. White, clean, neutral, layer by layer, the pink disappeared. Not angrily, not dramatically, just replaced. Because here's what I realized. This was never about revenge. It was about erasing the false narrative. I was never the $5 million mistake. I was the only reason this house survived at all. And now, it belonged to someone who earned it. But peace. Peace doesn't come from winning. It comes from deciding what you do next. And what I decided. That's where this story shifts again. You think this story ends with me living happily ever after in that house. Big kitchen, clean title, fresh white walls, victory lap energy. Nah. That would have been predictable. And I don't do predictable. 3 weeks after clearing the lien, I was sitting alone in the living room. No furniture. No family photos. No noise. Just space. And for the first time in my life, I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't want it, not the house. Not the memories, not the echo of arguments in the walls. Winning it felt powerful. Keeping it felt heavy. Because here's the truth nobody talks about. Sometimes the trophy still smells like trauma. Every corner had a memory attached. That staircase, where my dad once told me I'd never build anything impressive. The kitchen island, where my mom calculated how much rent I owed. That driveway, where I stood in a snowstorm holding trash bags. Yeah, ownership didn't erase that, it just gave me legal rights to it. So I called a realtor. Her name was Tasha. Sharp, efficient, no nonsense. She walked through the house slowly, nodding. Market's strong, she said. We list smart, you'll get above asking. I looked around one last time. List it. No dramatic music. No hesitation. Just clarity. When the listing went live, it moved fast. Open house weekend was packed. Couples, families, investors, people walking through rooms that once felt suffocating. Now just square footage. I stayed away during showings, didn't need to watch strangers admire crown molding where I once overheard insults. 3 offers came in, 2 competitive, 1 cash. Above asking, I accepted. 2 days after I took ownership. The house officially wasn't mine anymore. And weirdly, that felt like the real win. But I didn't just walk away with a profit, I did something else, something no one expected. See, during escrow, I ran numbers. After deductions, after fees, after clearing Ardent, net profit, significant, life-changing for most, but for me, it was leverage. So instead of upgrading to some mansion in Cherry Creek, I invested, not stocks, not crypto, people. I set up a private fund, small, strategic, designed specifically for young women aging out of foster care or being financially cut off by family. Security deposits, education stipends, no publicity, no press, no look at me saving the world, just quiet transfers, quiet opportunities, because I knew exactly what it felt like to stand in the cold with nowhere to go. And I also knew something else. Most people don't fail because they're incapable, they fail because they're destabilized. You take away housing, you take away clarity. I wasn't about to let someone else freeze because their family decided they were dead weight. A month later, I got a call. Block number. I almost didn't answer. I did, Raymond. Silence for a second. Then, you sold it. Not a question, a statement. Yes. Another pause. I know. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Not angry, just older. I went by last week, he said. New family moving in. I didn't respond. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. He added quietly, with what? With proving us wrong. That one almost made me laugh. This was never about proving you wrong, I said evenly. Then what was it about? Balance. Silence again. Then, you were never a mistake. That sentence. 26 years late. And somehow, it didn't hit the way I thought it would. Because validation from someone who devalued you expires. I know, I replied calmly. And I meant it. We didn't reconcile. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just ended the call. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in hugs. Sometimes it comes in silence. Harper tried a different route. She posted a soft, launch rebrand video. Starting over. Healing. Growth. Comments were mixed. Sympathy doesn't convert when your lifestyle contradicts your narrative. Her engagement dipped further. Reality isn't aesthetic, Denise. Last I heard, she was working part-time at a home decor store. Raymond picked up shifts at a hardware chain. Not glamorous, not tragic, just normal. Which is ironic. Because normal was all they ever accused me of being. As for me, I moved into a downtown loft, floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, no ghosts. Car registered in my name, accounts diversified, phone quiet, peace loud. But here's the part no one saw coming. The story didn't end with revenge. It ended with detachment. They thought kicking me out would shrink me. Instead, it revealed me. And when you finally see your own value clearly, you stop negotiating with people who never recognized it. There's just one more piece to this story, the part that ties everything together. And it's not what you think. Because the real lesson, it's bigger than a house. Let me tell you the most dangerous lie a parent can tell a child. You owe me. Not for love. Not for safety. Not for being born. Owe me. That sentence shaped my entire childhood. Every birthday, every report card, every quiet dinner where my father would casually remind me I cost him $5 million. Like I entered this world with a price tag stapled to my back. For years, I believed it. Believed I was behind before I even started. Believed I had to earn oxygen. That's the kind of psychological debt that doesn't show up on credit reports, but it compounds interest in your confidence. And here's what nobody tells you. When you grow up feeling like a liability, you either shrink or you sharpen. I sharpened. I learned contracts before I learned self-worth. I learned financial leverage before emotional boundaries. I learned how to trace money before I learned how to trace my own value. Because when someone tells you long enough that you're a bad investment, you either accept it or you become the auditor. Standing in my new loft weeks later, city lights stretching across the skyline, I replayed everything. The snowstorm, the pawn shop, the conference room, the deed transfer, the Leon battle, the sale. It sounds dramatic when you line it up like that. But here's the quiet truth behind it all. The moment that mattered most wasn't when I took the house. It wasn't when my father realized he'd signed it away. It wasn't even when the money cleared. It was the second I stopped trying to be loved by people who only valued performance. That was the real transfer of ownership. I stopped leasing my self-worth to critics. I took the title back. A few months after everything settled, I received an email from one of the young women funded through my housing initiative. Subject line: you changed my starting point. Not, you saved me. Not, you're my hero. Just, you changed my starting point. She wrote about sleeping in her car before the deposit transfer hit. About how having a door that locks gave her enough stability to apply for jobs without panic. She didn't know my full story. Didn't know why I started the fund. She just knew someone believed she deserved a foundation. And reading that felt bigger than any courtroom victory. Because here's the truth. The opposite of being called a mistake is being the reason someone else doesn't feel like one. People still ask if I regret not reconciling fully with my family. If I wish it ended differently. If I miss them. Here's my honest answer: I miss the idea of what I hoped they'd be. But I don't miss who they chose to be. And that difference, that's maturity. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it means releasing access. I didn't destroy them. I didn't ruin their lives. I enforced accountability. And accountability feels like cruelty only to people who've never faced it. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told you're a burden, let me say something clearly: you were never in debt. You were a child. You didn't cost someone their success. You didn't derail destiny. Adults make their own choices. And blaming a kid for missed opportunity, that's projection wrapped in ego. You don't owe your parents repayment for existing. You don't owe siblings your stability. You don't owe anyone your smallness so they can feel bigger. When my father finally said, "You were never a mistake," it didn't fix anything. Because by then, I already knew. And the day you know your value independently of the people who undervalued you is the day you become untouchable. Not cold, not bitter, untouchable. Because you stop negotiating with disrespect. You stop auditioning for approval. You stop funding people who call you dead weight. The girl who stood in a snowstorm holding trash bags thought she lost everything. What she actually lost was illusion. And illusion is expensive. Truth sets you free, and sometimes makes you wealthy. Not just financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. So if there's one lesson in all of this, it's this: don't just survive the audit. Become the auditor. Not of other people's lives. Of your own beliefs. Check the narrative. Trace the origin of your guilt. Question the debts you've been paying. And if they aren't real, close the account. I didn't buy the house to win. I bought it to close a chapter, and I sold it to open a better one. Because legacy isn't what you inherit. It's what you refuse to pass down. And I refuse to pass down shame disguised as responsibility. If this story hit you, if you've ever felt like the bad investment in your family, if you've ever had to rebuild without applause, just know this: you're not behind, you're just early in your comeback. And when you finally realize you were never the liability, that's when your real wealth begins. Drop a comment and tell me, what's one false debt you're done paying?